We are giving away 2 more Spider-Man figures, an Iron Spider and a normal Spider-Man. To enter, all you have to do is like the video, subscribe, turn on notifications, and follow the rest of the rules in the description. We've given away 6 figures so far and we still have more, so be sure to enter if you're interested. Now, on with the video. Marvel Comics has no shortage of iconic villains from their vast tenure, with icons like Doctor Doom, Venom, Galactus, and Thanos all taking their place in the Supervillain Hall of Fame under Marvel's umbrella. Each of these antagonists is formidable in their own right, and for very different reasons that give them each their own distinct identity and personality in Marvel's vast pantheon. Perhaps one of the most recognizable, however, just recently made his live-action resurgence after nearly 20 years of a big screen hiatus. We are talking, of course, about Norman Osborn, otherwise known as the Green Goblin. As the principal antagonist of 2002's Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi, Willem Dafoe left his mark among comic and movie fans alike for his terrifying portrayal of the villain. And with the recent release of No Way Home, we were reminded exactly why he is one of the most intense and terrifying villains of Marvel's roster. So what exactly makes him such a formidable enemy, and why does he frequently rise through the ranks to take his place as one of the most iconic Marvel villains of all time? Well, stick with us, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, and let's delve into the Green Goblin as a character, both throughout his comic appearances as well as Willem Dafoe's iteration, and break down exactly why Norman Osborn has left such a mark on modern pop culture. Perhaps the most iconic character trait that virtually every iteration of the character showcases is his insanity and his complete mental instability. While we will be diving into his gear and armaments in just a minute, technology and weaponry is useless without a person behind the equipment that can utilize it effectively. And there is a reason why this technology is terrifying in the hands of Norman Osborn's devious alter ego, the Goblin. The Goblin has no moral compass or sense of guilt or regret, which largely means that he is unfazed by the horrendous actions that he carries out on a near daily basis. He shows no remorse for anything he does, and is oftentimes compared to DC's equally as iconic villain, the Joker. Each of these characters thrive on chaos and calamity, operating completely without rhyme or reason, and their only intention being to cause pain and destruction. And in the case of Norman Osborn and that Goblin, this vendetta has often been incredibly personal and directed at Spider-Man, the Goblin's goal to achieve power at any cost for power's sake, to conquer a world merely because it is there, and because Spider-Man stands in his way, and has great power and wields it with such responsibility and grace. The Goblin hates Spider-Man. The Goblin hates the fact that Spider-Man has such power and uses it in the name of others, rather than to further his own goals, and therefore, Spider-Man stands as an insult to what the Green Goblin means. While that's not personal exclusive to him, and this personal rivalry has been emulated by the Joker's relationship with the Batman on numerous occasions, furthering the similarities between the two iconic villains. This relationship with Spider-Man is what helps drive him as a terrifying villain, especially for the webhead. In The Amazing Spider-Man number 121, we bear witness to perhaps one of the most tragic moments in Spider-Man's tenure as a superhero, that being the death of Gwen Stacy. In the original comic, the Goblin kidnaps Gwen and throws her off of the Brooklyn Bridge, resulting in her death after Peter failed to catch her. This sent Peter into a spiral of rage and bitterness that almost destroyed him mentally, and the destruction of Spider-Man's psyche was one of the Goblin's very few goals in his life. The Green Goblin didn't aspire for much beyond crumbling Spider-Man's mind, not just beating him, but utterly breaking him and wrecking his mental well-being. He targeted Spider-Man's mind, not his physical body. He has driven Spider-Man to the brink of insanity on numerous occasions, introducing comic readers to the widely divisive Clone Saga into the mainstream comics, and holding the death of Gwen Stacy over his head for years. The Goblin was also responsible for the death of Peter Parker and Mary Jane's newborn child, as in The Amazing Spider-Man number 418, he had the child delivered to him just moments after it was born, only to subsequently kill it and have it declared a stillborn. In addition, he sought to torture Peter mentally by faking the death of Aunt May just to watch him suffer. This took place in The Amazing Spider-Man 400, though it wasn't revealed until issue 441 that Norman Osborn conducted the elaborate ruse to bring Peter Parker to the brink of mental calamity. The Goblin continually finds joy in watching Spider-Man suffer, despite the complete lack of monetary reward nor incentive. Interestingly enough, however, is that the weight and drive of his story is not entirely consumed by destroying Spider-Man. He does have other motives. Many villains who are designed designed with the express intention of being evil for the sake of being evil often fall victim to being one-dimensional and ultimately forgettable. Their lack of discernible motivation often makes them boring. Yet the Goblin story does not fall into this trap. This is done because although the Goblin will stop at nothing and wants nothing more than to destroy the webhead, Norman Osborn actually does not. And this is an aspect of the character that Defoe portrays excellently. Throughout his tenure as the character, Defoe is able to expertly capture the split identity, shifting between personalities on a dime and truly convincing the audience that Norman is not in control of his own body and his own mind. The thought of not having control of your own body and mind is a concept that should reasonably terrify anybody, and seeing Norman being tortured by the prospect of being responsible for any number of incredibly heinous acts is not only incredibly personal, but very well done by Defoe yet again, a staple to his incredible acting. In short, Norman is terrified of the Goblin, and he has no control over what the Goblin might hijack or when he may hijack his body and use it to wreak havoc anywhere he pleases. This is an aspect where I would say the Goblin actually has something over the Joker and makes him somewhat sympathetic while at the same time all the more terrifying. Defoe is able to sell us on the notion that this is not his fault, that Norman is a prisoner within his own mind, and there is nothing that he can do to avoid the acts that he has no control over. And when the Goblin is in control, then there is no moral compass or sense of right and wrong to guide the Goblin down the righteous path. No more Norman, and as the Goblin puts it, no more weakness. When the Goblin takes over, everyone is in the crossfire of his psychopathy, and nobody is safe from his wrath. While brute insanity and a complete lack of morality is one thing, it is exacerbated by the fact that the Goblin now has access to an incredibly variety of resources. And while this largely pertains to gadgets and weaponry, it also accounts for the incredible levels of political and social influence that the Goblin obtains through Norman. Another level for why he's so dangerous. But first, let's briefly touch on his array of weaponry. Perhaps the most iconic gadget in his vast arsenal is the glider that he rides while carrying out his slaughter. The glider is equipped with any number of blades, guns, smoke bombs, and pumpkin bombs which he can utilize at a moment's notice for any number of reasons. His array of pumpkin bombs are each designed with specific purposes in mind, and while each of them are incredibly deadly in their own right, they each carry out their destructive designs differently, and we got to see quite a few iterations in Willem Dafoe's portrayal and in live action throughout not only his 2 movies, but we also got to see the gadgets that Harry Osborn inherited in Spider-Man 3. Norman Osborn has also had access to suits of advanced Iron Man armor in the comics, including the Iron Patriot suit which he used during his time as a Dark Avenger in his comic iteration. In the comics, he rose through the ranks and graduated from strictly hunting Spider-Man to terrorizing the Avengers as a whole. If given time, the Goblin is absolutely an Avengers level threat, and has shown himself to be an incredibly formidable opponent for even Earth's mightiest heroes. Any villain, no matter who they are, who has the capacity to challenge the might of the Avengers, does so through incredibly skilled means, be it intellectually, physically, or through naturally gifted power, the Goblin of which has all 3. The Goblin is often regarded as one of the greatest challenges in the Marvel Comics universe. Be it in live action, animation, or comic material, the Green Goblin continually serves as a staple of pop culture and one of the most iconic villains that Marvel Comics has to offer. And the Goblin deserves your respect and your fear. But anyway, friends, what do you think of the Green Goblin as a character, and how do you like Defoe in the role? And ultimately, who is your favorite Marvel villain and why? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching this video as we talk about the Green Goblin and why he's one of the most terrifying characters of all time. Hit that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and I hope to see you in the next video.